Okay, so our next step when taking derivatives, we're going to look at something called the chain rule. So we'll start off with find the derivative for f of x equals 2x squared to the third. So we have a power to a power here, so we can kind of rewrite this as, 2 to the third times x squared to the third, which is 8x to the sixth, power to a power. And that will be, the derivative will be 48x to the fifth. Okay, keep that in mind. So f prime of x, 48x to the fifth. So now we have something for the chain rule. And the chain rule is used for finding derivatives of what we call composite functions, a function within a function. And the chain rule says if you have a function h of x equals f parentheses g of x, then h prime will be f prime g of x times g prime x. And really all we say is this, it's the derivative of the outside times the derivative of the inside. And I think this looks best when we do it with an example. So let's go back to what we had in the do now here. We have inside and we have outside functions. So our inner and our outer. Okay, I like to actually, you know what, I usually like to do the outer first. So the outer is something in between to the third. What's inside is your inner. So it's the derivative of the outside times the derivative of the inside. Well, what's the derivative of the outside? It's just going to be 3, and then whatever inside, drop the exponent by 1. And then what's inside? Well, that's 2x squared. And what's the derivative of 2x squared? That's just 4x. So what does this look like if we were to do this? Let me just make some room here for us. We would say f prime of x equals 3, keep the inside to the second. That's this part. It's just taking the derivative of the exponent on the outside. Bring the 3 to the front, decrease the power by 1, keep what's inside, times the derivative of the inside, 4x. Now, this answer looks a lot different than what we got in the do now, and that's just because now there's just some work here. Well, what's 3 times 4x? That's 12x parentheses 2x squared squared. What's 2x squared squared? Power to a power. That's 12x times 4x to the fourth, which when I multiply this, we get 48x to the fifth. Now, you might be saying, well, this seems like a lot more work than what we did in the do now. Yeah, and yeah, it is. But most of the time, we could just leave it in this form. And that's all we really need because we're going to substitute in to find the slope at a given point. Now, also, this is going to be a lot more helpful when we get into some more complicated problems. So there's your chain rule. It's the derivative of the outside times the derivative of the inside. So let's take a look at some examples. We'll start off with multiple choice. So it says f prime of x, find the derivative for each problem using the chain rule. So here we go. So derivative of the outside, 5 times the inside to the fourth. So that means that, let's see, it's either going to be b or c. Okay. Okay, so we get 5. So what is the outer function? Let's just write this down. Sorry. It's something to the fifth. What's the inner function? Well, that's 3x to the fourth plus 4. So the derivative of the inner function is pretty easy. It's 12x cubed. The constant goes away. 12x cubed. Okay, that's good. And the derivative of the outside is 5. Keep the inside to the fourth. So that leaves us with c. What about this next one? Here we go. Inner function, outer function. The outer is going to be something to the fifth, and the inner is 5x to the fourth plus 1. Derivative of the outer, 5, keep the inside to the fourth, decrease the power by 1. Derivative of the inner, 20x. The constant goes away. So which choice says that? Well, that's going to be B. 5, keep the inside to the fourth, decrease the power by 1, times 20x cubed. Then they multiply 20x cubed times 5 and got 100x cubed, parentheses, 5x to the fourth plus 1 to the fourth. All right, now let's try it without multiple choice. Let's see how we handle these. So the outer function, something to the eighth. The inner function, x to the fifth plus 3x. So derivative of the outside, 8 parentheses, x to the 5th plus 3x, decrease the power by 1, times the derivative of the inner function, 5x to the 4th plus 3. And you could leave it like that. Some people like to multiply the 8 by this inner function derivative, but you don't have to. Derivative of the outside times derivative of the inside. Let's try another. The outside function, it's something to the 5th. The inside function, 4x cubed plus 5. Derivative of the outside, so f prime of x. Derivative of the outside, 5. Keep the inside. Decrease the power by 1, times derivative of the inside, that's 12x squared. Done. Chain rule. And now's where it starts to get a lot harder, okay? Because a couple things here. Now we are going to implement a combination of things that we've learned. And this is here I see two terms being multiplied, so I want to use product rule. But the second term in the product rule has an exponent on the outside, so it's a function within a function. So we're going to have to use the product rule and the chain rule. Okay? Keep in mind, just a reminder, y equals this, so y prime, product rule, right, was, remember, label h and g. So g of x, h of x. Product rule said h of x times the derivative of the first plus g of x times the derivative of the second is going to be the product rule. So now I'm going to go nice and slow and we'll do this. So y prime equals, well, h of x is this whole piece of the function. So that's x squared plus 3 to the 5th times g prime of x, the derivative of the first. So the second times the derivative of the first. What's the derivative of 3x cubed plus 1? That's 9x squared plus the first function times the derivative of the second. Here's where the derivative of the second gets a little complicated. What is the derivative of this? Well, you have to use the chain rule. It's 5 parentheses x squared plus 3 to the 4th, decrease the power by 1, and then the derivative of the inside times 2x. So this entire line here is going to be the derivative. And it's complicated, and you could clean it up, but there's no need. Just leave it. So let's try another one here. Let's see. F of x equals x plus 1 times x squared plus 3 cubed. So we're going to have a product rule and chain rule when we're taking the derivative of the second term. Okay, so f prime of x, let's set up the product rule first. Okay, it's the second times the derivative of the first. All right, so the second times the derivative of the first plus the first times the derivative of the second. All right, so let's do that. So the second term is x squared plus 3 cubed. All right, keep that in mind. Let's highlight what the terms are. There's 1, and there's 2. So it's the second times the derivative of the first is just 1, right? Because the derivative of x plus 1 is 1. Plus the first times the derivative of the second. Now the derivative of the second, we have to use the chain rule. That is 3x squared plus 3 squared, decrease the power by 1, times the derivative of the inside, 2x. Right? Keep in mind, this is the derivative of the second. There you go. All right, so what do we see here? We see an interesting problem here. We have quotient rule, but we also have a chain rule. So here, let's see what we got. We've got the outside function is something to the fifth, and the inside function is 2x plus 8 over x minus 1, which means when we take the derivative of the inside, this is where the quotient rule comes into play. What was the quotient rule again? It was that catchy little tune, right? It was low d high minus high d low over low squared. High d low d high minus high d low over low squared. So let's do this. So first, derivative of the outside. So y prime equals 5, keep the inside, decrease the power by 1, times, and now we have to take the derivative of this division, which is a quotient rule problem. So that's low d high minus high d low. If you want to label low, high. So here we go. Low, derivative of the high part is just 2 minus high. Derivative of the low part is just 1 over low squared. That's it. Leave it. All right, so today you're going to try out this lesson. Tomorrow, try out the homework. Let me just write this out. This is the chain rule, then the quotient rule. Okay, I know it's a little confusing. Try it out, guys. Follow my guide. That's why I did all the problems today. Don't worry about 8 for today, and submit this by the end of the day.